Oh my god, I'm so fucking excited. I keep getting like frozen trying to think about this. Okay, let's just go.
Welcome to Path of Exile 2. We'd like to start off by showing some of the gameplay of Act 3, one of the 6 acts in PoE 2's campaign.
Oh my god.
We're starting here in the jungle depths. Act 3 is set in the ruins of the Vile civilization which fell thousands of years ago. Jungle has taken over their former once great cities, and we'll be exploring it using one of our 6 new character classes, called the Monk. In PoE 1, we had one character class for each of the combinations of Strength, Dexterity, and Intelligence. When looking at the design of PoE 2, though, we realized that many of the new skills that we were trying to design just didn't really fit thematically with the existing classes that we have. Being a spellcaster with a bear form makes sense for Strength Int, but it doesn't really sound like something that a Templar would do. We realized that since we had new mechanics for every attribute combination, it actually made sense to design new character classes to explore the new themes. In PoE 2, every attribute combination has 2 classes associated with it. Strength Int has the Templar or the Druid, on Dexterity you have the Ranger or the more spear-focused Huntress, and on Dex Int you have the Shadow and the Monk, which Mark is playing here. Each class has its own 3 ascendancies that let you further specialize the class in the way that only that class has access to, but they both start at the same location in the passive tree. The quest rewards you're offered on the 2 variants are tailored to the class, but of course, this is PoE. You can still mix and match anything to your heart's content.
Damn, look at it, it looks so good!
Looks like we've come across the boss for this area. In PoE 2, every area of the campaign contains a boss of at least this difficulty. That's over 100 bosses to fight as you make your way through the campaign, and they all have unique mechanics to learn.
Damn, so this
As
means
you've seen from
that...
watching Mark fighting, the melee combat in PoE...
Dude, so if every area has a boss like this, does that mean that the campaign time is reduced significantly? You won't be able to just blast through the campaign in hours anymore? That kind of sucks. But if the campaign's interesting, I don't mind. Like, if it's like Diablo 4 campaign. But at the same time, if it takes 40 hours like Diablo 4 campaign does, no one wants to do it over and over again. But anyway, I thinking out loud. Let's keep watching.
PoE 2 has a very different feel than before. We've done a lot of things to add mobility to combat. Practically every melee skill in PoE 2 has some kind of movement built into it.
They have a roll now?
Is a melee
Dodge
fighter
roll?
who specializes in mobility over brute strength.
Dang. It feels like it's kind of like a Brutus level
as Mark
boss.
has been playing, you might have noticed these blue markers over enemies. Mark has a skill equipped called Killing Palm. Whenever an enemy has a blue indicator over it, it means that the monster has low enough life to cull with Killing Palm. Successfully executing the cull will give you a power charge. This is an important skill for the monk, since many of his skills interact with power charges. One of the great things about the skill is that it has a built-in dash forward, which makes it much easier to target the skill at the right point when you need it. We've done a lot of work in PoE 2 to make using skills like this feel satisfying. If you're accidentally targeting slightly off the monster, the skill will automatically lock on to the cullable target, and will even do a small amount of pathfinding around obstacles. We really want to make sure that when you've got an opportunity to use the skill, nothing is going to get in your way. Once you have some power charges, you need some skills to power up. A great follow-up is Falling Thunder. Falling Thunder without a power charge just creates a relatively small lightning AoE in front of you. But do it with some power charges and it turns into a pack clearer with a large number of extra projectiles.
Oh, that's sick.
One thing you'll notice here is that like almost every melee skill in PoE 2, Falling Thunder has a bit of extra movement built in just in case you need it. Using the skill within range, and you'll do a flip in place. But use it at a larger range, and your character will move forward while executing it, getting you into position without any time penalty. In PoE 2, you also get a short period to redirect your target. Notice how you can start the skill facing one way, then whip the mouse sideways to land the skill in a different direction? In order to get power charges, you're going to first need to get some lower life monsters into a cullable range. You've got a few options. If you want to charge right in, Whirling Assault is a good option. It doesn't do much damage per hit, but it covers a lot of ground. And notice how you can turn as you do it?
Dude, it looks so
Generally
good!
speaking, you never lose control of your character.
Holy shit!
If you make a turn at the right time, you can get a couple of extra hits
Oh my
on the
god.
monsters, getting you into
PoE
range
that
of your
looks
cover.
like Diablo 4.
Follow up with a killing
That's the
palm, and
dream.
finish off the rest of the pack with your Crawling Thunder.
Holy shit, but goddamn. I'm just thinking endgame, man. Like when you like will PoE 2 have the same monster density as PoE 1 does, like on tier 16 juiced content? So with these graphics, like if you have like 1500 mobs on a single map with the VFX that look like that, dude, we're having trouble with PoE 1 right now, like on certain PCs. Like for example with certain explosion skills. Like Herald of Ice, for example. Like when like on Legions. Or Essence Drain Contagion with like explodey chest or whatever. Something that explodes monsters on your screen and do like a screen clear. There's a lot of monsters that shit can crash your computer. But if you add that shit to graphics that look like this game better be optimized. Is all I'm gonna say.
We've now entered the Vaal Mechanarium. This is the
like imagine fucking Simulacrum with these graphics. How laggy is that shit gonna be? Or 100% Delirium tier 16 map? I can't imagine it.
place where the Vaal built the various constructs they relied on to power their civilization.
Now,
Dude, it
this
just
is a find.
it looks and
A
feels
Vaal
so
ruin that
crisp.
hasn't been looted?
It literally
I've
just
never
feels
seen
like
it here
an
before.
improved version, like
One
a
useful
fresh
feature that we've added
coat
is the
of
ability
paint
to call
on
in
PoE.
NPCs to where you are.
I love
give you
it.
More information, help you with quest objectives, and so that you don't have to always go back to town. In this case, we'll call in Alva to find out what to do.
This mechanism, if powered with a small soul core, it could open that door. There should definitely be soul cores somewhere around here. They had to power these constructs somehow.
As Alpha said, we need to find a soul core to open this door. Let's explore. If you want to shave off some life without getting too close to some of the more dangerous monsters, a good option is Wind Blast. Wind Blast also doesn't do too much damage, but it keeps the enemies back. The closer they are, the farther they're pushed back, so it's a great option for keeping smaller but high damage enemies at bay. Note that the bigger the enemy is, the less they'll be pushed back, so trying to push back some giants isn't going to be effective. And there's the soul core. Let's get back to the door.
Is sealed.
Dude, I'm just like admiring the graphics, dude. It looks so goddamn good. Holy shit. Even the UI looks so clean.
Consider me impressed. I'll keep
Ay,
investigating
ay, ay.
here. Bring me in if you find anything else.
If you need to defeat tougher enemies, it might be time to break out some of the ice skills in the monk's arsenal. Glacial Cascade creates a wave of ice that moves slowly in front of the player. It's pretty ineffective against fast-moving monsters because most of the damage occurs right at the end of the wave, and so a lot of monsters will just walk right by it. But if you can find a way to make a monster stop at just the right place, it can be very effective. In order to do that, you probably want to freeze monsters. The monk has a few different tools to do this. The fairly simple option is to get right in the monster's face with Ice Strike. Ice Strike doesn't do too much damage on the first 2 hits, but attack 3 times in sequence and you can get off a combo that has a much higher chance to freeze.
That looks
Get
cool.
in there with that freeze, then roll back and finish the job with a Glacial Cascade. Now, remember how Glacial Cascade had that extra damaging spike at the end? If you've hit a frozen enemy with that spike, it shatters the ice on the enemy and does a devastating amount of damage.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I just casually mentioned rolling back before. Did I forget to
Hashtag
mention
make
that in
Frostblades
PoE 2 we
good
added
again.
dodge roll to every character? Just press spacebar at any time to roll. There's no cooldown, no limitations. It even has a bit of built-in pathfinding so you don't get stuck on things. When you dodge roll, you're not invulnerable. If something hits you, you're going to feel it, but most things will
goddamn.
not hit you. That's because while rolling, projectiles and melee strikes will always miss. You'll have to roll out of the way of a slam that has AoE, but anyone swinging a sword or throwing a fireball is going to miss. Now, another really important
Does it
function
have
of
a
the dodge roll
cooldown?
is that it lets you cancel out of almost any skill at any time.
Oh, that's
This makes it so you don't
awesome.
feel like you're getting stuck doing a long animation when something is about to hit you. It really
That's
changes how
awesome.
skills with longer attack and cast times play, and it makes dodge roll feel like a very
So now I
reliable
have-
way to avoid attacks.
Now I have Dark Souls
That's one way
mechanics
to get out
in
of the wave
PoE.
damage,
Holy
but the
crap.
monk specializes in mobility, so it makes sense that he would have a few more. Wave of Frost is one of our new attacks with a retreat built right in. You move backwards and throw out a cold attack with a significant freeze. The great thing about this is it puts you at a good distance to follow up with Glacial Cascade and do a whole pile of damage. Hey look, another
Dude,
Soul
this is
Core.
awesome. This is awesome.
Another skill you can use to get some extra freeze is Shattering Palm. Shattering Palm is another palm strike that puts a small ice bomb on your target. Kill or deal enough damage to the target and the bomb will explode, doing some damage and a significant freeze. It's a great option against bosses where the wave of ice might not be enough to get that freeze off, but you really want to get that Glacial Cascade damage bonus.
Get back! Face your demise.
The final skill we're going to show you today is Flicker Strike. It's a monk skill
Oh my
now,
god.
and another skill that consumes power charges. If you've played PoE 1, you know what to expect. It's a great finisher for tough boss fights, and it looks pretty impressive too.
Face your demise.
Okay.
Another door. I wonder what could be in there.
I want to see poison builds, boys. Show me poison.
In order to take down this boss, we're going to need all the
But
tools
I
in the
do
monk's
enjoy
arsenal, especially
holding
the
freeze
combo of
builds
freeze and
also.
Glacial Cascade. If you're a PoE 1 player, you might think that you can't really rely on freeze because there's so many bosses that are immune to it. But in PoE 2, that's changing significantly. In PoE 1, freeze is a binary mechanic. An attack freezes the target or it doesn't. What this basically means is that in PoE 1, we were forced to add freeze immunity to many bosses because freeze just trivialized them. Because of that, freezing was something you only really used while pack clearing, and not something you could rely on as a core part of your build for boss fight.
Well, not necessarily.
PoE 2 though, all crowd control mechanics now have internal meters that allow you to build up to a freeze or stun, or whatever other CC mechanic you might be using. It's a little bit like poise from games like Elden Ring, though the meters tend to be a lot smaller than those games. When you freeze an enemy, it increases the amount of freeze you need to do another freeze, but the increased difficulty bleeds away slowly. More freeze will always let you freeze the boss more often, but this system means it will not get out of control in party play or interact badly with other CC mechanics, allowing us to let these kinds of mechanics actually work against all bosses.
That's cool though. Like in the end game, I imagine you're gonna have a lot of freeze chance, possibly close to 100%. So you're gonna be freezing all the uber bosses. Just cool. Or paired with like super high attack speed. Like basically how it works right now in PoE 1. Like for example with the skill like a Frostblades. Because you build so much attack speed on that skill. You get, I mean at the top end you probably deal like 12 attacks a second. with frost blades, and because of that, you basically, unless it's like super uber bosses, you freeze any boss real quick. Like Minotaurs, Guardians. I don't know if you can freeze someone like Cyrus or Shaper or Elder. I don't think so, but like Guardian bosses, they always freeze. Minotaur, Hydra, Elder Guardians, Conquerors, they can freeze.
Blackjaw has dropped a consumable quest item, the Flame Core. It's a permanent plus
Yes!
spirit.
Fucking
In
Inventory
PoE2,
Tetris
we really
is
want to
back,
make sure that
baby.
you feel rewarded for
thank
exploration.
you.
It wouldn't be much good if we made all these awesome optional bosses if we didn't have something great to find for killing them. One of the things you might find for killing a boss is a permanent stat bonus to your character.
So I'm really fucking tired of the inventory system in Diablo 4. It's so boring.
Your fate is sealed.
Uh-oh. Damn, so like, what level is this character, I wonder? He said it's Act 3? So probably like level 20 something? It's interesting, there's no utility flasks on his setup. It's all just like HP and mana. It's interesting. At that level. Uh-oh, what happened? Hello? Dude, the dodge roll is so good, and notice how it doesn't look like it has a cooldown. Which is, if it
In order to help
doesn't,
us
it's
with this next
amazing.
area, we're going to call in a sorceress. Mark's friend Octavian is going to send a friendvite, which we're going to accept, and then they can play together.
'Cause that will make the gameplay so much more fun than Diablo 4.
The sorceress is the new intelligence-focused character in PoE 2.
Because in
While
Diablo
the witch
4,
focuses more on occult magic and
if you obviously you have a dodge, and every dodge on every class has a cooldown, and it feels bad when you have a cooldown and you can't move out of certain attacks. So basically, there's like a you're always guaranteed to take damage from mobs, because there are situations when you can get away from, or you can evade some of the attacks. Or like there will be a situation where all your skills, including the dodge, will be on cooldown. But if it doesn't have a cooldown, you can just have fun with it, you know? That's why when when you get a certain boots on rogues, certain type of boots on rogues where they add, I don't know if it's rogue exclusive though. It might not be, but anyways, some boots give you plus to the amount of dodge skills you can get. So like by default you get one dodge, and then the cooldown begins once you use it. With certain boots, the implicit gives you like +2 to dodge, +2, I guess, +2 casts for dodge ability. So you can cast it 3 times in a row before it goes on, and then it makes it a lot more fun. You can dodge, wait a little bit, and then dodge again, or you can dodge 3 times in a row to avoid attacks if you. But it still gets a cooldown, right? But if it doesn't, if it works in PoE like the way I think it does without any cooldowns, it's amazing, because the whole thing in PoE is that if you are skilled enough, you can avoid any type of damage, any type of attack. Just like in Dark Souls, for example. Like you have unlimited, like you do have stamina, but for the most part, like you can mitigate stamina use in some ways, or you can get like pots that recover your stamina if you need to. Basically, you can make a build where you can basically dodge attacks all the time. Like you virtually have no limits. And I think here in PoE 2, they're making it a reality as well. Like if they're adding a dodge, I'm pretty sure it shouldn't have any cooldown. So they're giving you this extra ability to avoid damage. Which is awesome.
In summoning, the sorceress is themed around pure elemental destruction. Let's have a look at how she plays.
All the vaunted technology of the Val, and look where it got them. Dead and buried.
This is the largest soul core I've ever seen. With this, we could power the canal systems.
The models look so clean.
It isn't charged.
Character models, look at them.
There is still latent energy in this machinarium from its ancient operation. These lines in the stonework should lead to generators. You might need to find some more soul cores to spin them up, but everything looks to be in surprisingly decent condition. Maybe the golems have been maintaining it. In any case, it should still function. We'll have to remove that large core from the wall, of course, but that shouldn't be a problem.
We have some skills here that you'll probably recognize if you've played PoE 1 before, but they feel a bit different to play now. Spark is great in these tight passages as it bounces around. We've added a Pierce support gem to really allow it to hit an entire room of targets. For a more single target focused skill,
That
Arc
looks
is
awesome.
a good choice. It does more damage to the first target you hit.
Dang.
Now, if you find yourself surrounded, it might be good to use Ice Nova. It hits all enemies around you and slows them down with chill. Just be careful. Getting up close and personal isn't the ideal place for a sorceress to be. She doesn't have the defenses of a more melee-oriented character. If you want to help with the sorceress's weak melee defense though, you could use Arctic Armor. In PoE 2, Arctic Armor is a buff that builds up as you stand still. You can see the ice crystals forming around the character. They'll drop off if you walk. When monsters hit you, they take cold damage and build up to a freeze, so it's a great defense. Just be careful. You have to be standing still for a little while to get the full effect, so trying to stutter step isn't the best strategy. Now, Arctic Armor is an ongoing buff, but did you notice it didn't reserve any mana? How does that work? Well, we were pretty sick of the fact that in PoE 1 basically every character was playing with no mana pool, so we decided to change the way that reservation works. There's a new resource in PoE 2 called Spirit. Spirit is a dedicated resource you can use for ongoing effects like Arctic Armor, Heralds, Auras, or even Minions. Everyone starts with 100 Spirit, which is enough for most ongoing effects.
Dang.
But if you want more than one effect, you're going to need some more Spirit. Spirit is available on mods from items and on the passive tree. But if you're willing to give up your offhand slot, the easiest way to get it is by holding a scepter.
Interesting. So everyone will be running around with scepters now.
Now,
They're
if you want to
kinda
increase the
stupid.
cold damage you're dealing, you can use a Frost Bomb. It places a bomb on the ground that reduces the enemy's cold resistance while it's ticking down. It's a great opportunity to use some cold skills before it explodes. And speaking of cold skills, a great skill to use on monsters with the slower cold resistance is Comet. This is a new skill in PoE 2, and it hits pretty damn hard. It costs a lot of mana and has a really long cast time, but it's worth the wait. It does a devastating amount of damage. To help get you out of danger, your character moves back slightly as it casts. It's pretty hard to hit a fast-moving opponent, but it's great on tougher enemies that stand still, or even a larger
Dude, it's so funny because right now this game looks way more like Diablo than Diablo 4 does. It's crazy.
pack if you're further away and can predict where they're going to move.
It's hilarious,
Now, if you run
actually.
out of mana casting too many of
Think
those,
about
I
it.
guess in an emergency you could cast your free-to-cast Fireball. Where did that come from, you ask? Well, this is a great opportunity to explain the way we've changed caster weapons in PoE 2. Now, in PoE 1, caster weapons had a default melee attack that nobody used, and because they had that, they also had a bunch of attack mods that would spawn in them that were useless to a caster.
True. Yep.
In PoE 2, we wanted to clean that up, so now each
Nice.
staff comes with a built-in free-to-cast spell. Just put it on and spam to your heart's content. Now this
Oh,
particular
this is so
staff is a base
sick.
type that you get right on the starting beach, and it's quite likely that you're going to outgrow it. So that's why we have a lot
Look at the UI, man. Look at the character. Look at how clean. Dude. How can Grinding Gear Games, which is an indie company technically, make a game that looks like this, that hits all the right parts and does all the right things in the way of visuals? Like, look at the way the inventory is done. Look at the way the UI is done. Look at the way the environments are lit. The characters, the way they look, the way the VFX look. And compare it to fucking Diablo 4. Not that it's a bad looking game. Diablo 4 is stunning, but it looks like a different game. This looks like it belongs in belongs more within a Diablo franchise than Diablo 4 does. It's so strange. Like, look at this. Doesn't this look like a Diablo game? Or like a remnant of that kind of era of Diablo 2? Obviously Path of Exile 1 is literally Diablo 2 clone. They took so many inspirations from Diablo 2, and Chris Wilson always talks about how Diablo 2 was like Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 is like one of the main references for PoE 1. Always were when they were starting. God damn it, they just took that, right? And they found a way to improve on it in the right ways. And it's now evident how Diablo 4 team and Blizzard themselves fucking failed to do that. It's hilarious.
of staves with more utility-focused powers for casters to use.
Oh
Here we
my
have a
god.
crystal staff. It's got a pretty cool built-in spell called Unleash. Using it slams your staff on the ground and will allow you to
Like, look, even ideas like this, like removing physical damage from weapon types like a staff. Like that idea, that gameplay design in itself is already revolutionary. Right? It's a gameplay design choice that kind of improved, like it develops the genre further. Like, why haven't we thought about this before? You know what I mean? Like as ARPG developers or game designers or players, that magic weapons don't really fucking need physical stats on them. Who could have thought? Like, why do I have fucking bludgeoning or like just normal physical damage as base damage on a magical wand, for example? Like, what? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So of course, naturally, the natural like progression of the genre is to make those weapon types make sense. This is how you make the power fantasy real, right? Like, this is how you make the game feel like, okay, I'm playing a magic type class and I'm using magic type weapons, so it makes sense that my magic weapon has magic damage on it, magic type damage as a baseline, not like fucking hidden damage or a melee damage or physical damage. It makes perfect sense. So this is how you propel the genre forward, with ideas like that.
Now this particular staff is the base type that you get right on the starting beach, and it's quite likely that
Look at that. Obviously, like, why would it just has a Grants level 10 fireball skill. Perfect. I don't need any other bullshit on it. Like, fucking hits with this weapon deal like 10 to 15 physical damage. Like, why would I do that? I never, as a sorcerer, come next to a target and hit it on the head with a fucking stick. I never do that. I want to stay away and I want to shoot fireballs at it. Duh. Boom. A revolution in terms of itemization going forward in this genre. Brilliant.
That you're going to outgrow it. So that's why we have a lot of staves with more utility-focused powers for casters to use. Here we have a crystal staff. It's got a pretty cool built-in spell called Unleash. Using it slams your staff on the ground and will allow you to triple cast whatever you cast with your next spell. Now, of course, you're probably going to want to use that with something powerful.
Dude, that's sick! Oh my god!
Notice that Unleash is one of the few skills in PoE 2 with a cooldown. In general, we really try to avoid using cooldowns because we really hate the feeling that combat is just waiting to be able to use your next skill. But it does make sense for Unleash since it's free to cast and it's something we want you to be using situationally anyway.
That is
now,
awesome.
If you're facing something tough, you might want to try out Mana Tempest. Mana Tempest creates a circle of power in which your character literally hovers over the ground. While in the circle, your mana drains, but it powers up all of your spells. Lightning projectiles fork, beams chain further, and you'll also do a lot more damage.
Dude, this gameplay just makes me so happy all my days.
So with all of these skills, here's a great combo to try. First, cast Frost Bomb to reduce the target's cold resistance. Then use Mana Tempest to increase your damage. Follow it with Unleash, and then triple cast the Comet to do a truly insane amount of damage.
Damn.
I need more time.
This rare monster dropped an uncut gem. This is a good opportunity to talk about how skill gems drop in PoE 2. Instead of dropping specific gems, you can find
totally not
uncut
scripted.
gems. Just right-click on them and pick whatever skill you want. The gem will come pre-leveled to the level of the area that dropped it, so it's a lot easier to change between skills in PoE 2. This time, I think it might be cool to grab one of our meta gems. Meta gems are skills that can have other skills socketed into them, changing how they work. In this case, we're going to select Cast on Shock. Now, let's equip this thing in the skill screen and choose a spell to trigger with it. I think Comet might be fun. Because Cast on Shock reserves Spirit, we'll need to first disable our Arctic armor. We have to decide if we'd rather have the extra defense or the extra offense of the Cast on Shock using our Spirit.
Nah, always
In
go
PoE 2,
offense.
Trigger gems use a system
Big
of
dick.
filling up cast time on each trigger. Basically,
If you
a skill
kill them
has a
before
short
they
cast
kill
time,
you, that's
then
your
we'll
best
trigger it really
defense.
often. If it's got a long cast time, like this Comet here, it will take a lot longer to trigger. You can see up the top left that there's a counter that says how far it is until your next trigger. And there you are. Using Cast on Shock, we'll automatically cast Comet whenever we're using our lightning skills.
Interesting. So, I wonder if you can increase how fast this goes up. This counter goes up if you start increasing your chance to shock, for example. Like if you have 100% chance to shock. Is this like always at 100% or how does that work? So basically every time you attack you shock, and every time you shock you
So we've found the generator.
cast something
Time
else
to
on top
power
of
it
it.
up.
Probably. Right? Makes sense.
As power is restored to the Mechanarium, all the constructs are coming back to life. We'll need to fight them on the way back to the charged Soul Core. One thing that PoE 1 players might have noticed is that this character has both ice and lightning spells. That's pretty inefficient, isn't it? It's a big no-no
Nah.
for most builds because any specialization into cold or lightning isn't going to affect the other element. And
all
generic
good.
elemental damage increases are not going to be as
Just use
powerful as
Trinity.
focusing on a single element. Well, in PoE 2, we have another major new system to introduce to solve these kinds of problems, and it starts with Weapon Swap. Now in PoE 1, Weapon Swap isn't really used much for its originally intended use case. We imagined that people were going to be swapping in and out between different weapons to deal with whatever situation they were in. People just don't do that at all, and a large reason for that is because it's really awkward to do.
Yeah.
In PoE 2, we wanted to solve that. The staff Octavian is using here has an ice mod on it that makes it great for when he's using his ice spells. We would also like to be able to make sure that the build works just as well for his lightning spells. If Octavian equips his previous staff in his second weapon set, you can see that it appears on the character's back. Now we're going to open up the skills screen. If Octavian opens up the skill options for his lightning skills, you can see here that you can choose which weapon sets are usable with each skill. First, we uncheck set 1 from being used by his lightning skills. Then, we go through the cold skills and turn those off with his lightning weapon.
Oh, this is awesome.
Now, when we use Spark, the character will automatically switch to the lightning staff on
Oh,
his back
that's sick.
and use the skill. When Octavian uses Ice Nova, his character automatically switches over to his ice staff before using it.
Oh, that's cool.
Figure each skill for which set to use, or both if you don't mind which. There's a very short time penalty to switching.
Yeah, it's
so it can be good to
technically
leave some
like
skills
in Diablo 4 right now, like on the rogue or on the barbarian. Depending on which skill you're using, it will automatically, like for example, if melee skill that you're using on a rogue, it will automatically attack with melee weapons. But if you're using something like a ranged attack, like a penetrating shot, for example, it'll automatically use the crossbow or a normal bow to attack with. That's awesome. But it's cool that you can have autonomy over it. Like, for example, use both weapons for everything, or just being able to swap between them depending on the skill. That's awesome.
on both sets, if it doesn't matter which weapon set you're using. But we still have the problem of passives. Wouldn't it be nice if we could specialize in both cold and lightning passives on the character? Well, in PoE 2, you can. We're on the passive skill screen here, and you can see that we're close to both a cold and a lightning cluster. At the top right of the screen, you can see where we have some weapon set specific points to allocate. If Octavian holds shift, he can allocate set 1 to the cold passives, and then allocate set 2 to the lightning passives. Now check this out. As we weapon swap, our passive tree changes from one build to the other automatically. Whenever we cast the appropriate spell, the character's passives reconfigure on the fly to the correct build for that spell.
What?
Now you can't do this with every passive on your tree. Only points granted from skill books will allow this kind of dual specialization.
Dude, this is insane.
So you can't change from a mace slamming warrior into a fire elementalist with the press of a button. But it certainly increases the number of options you have for builds.
That's crazy.
There's a huge number of places where the system can shine. You could augment your Dagger Shadow build with traps, or have a great curse setup on your Witch in one spec, and then move to your Chaos debuff spells with the other. It really opens up your options.
I need more time.
Another fun metagem to try out is called Barrier Invocation. This works a little bit like the trigger gem I talked about before, but this one charges up as your energy shield is hit by monsters. I think we might like to put an Ice Nova in this one. The more energy shield you lose, the more charge builds up until the point where you're able to cast the skill you socketed instantly. Lose some energy shield, and then at just the right time invoke Ice Nova to cast all the stacked up versions in one cast.
Dang.
If you keep losing shield, you'll build up even more charge for even more casts, so it's a great defensive option in an emergency. Here we are, back at the charged Soul Core. All we have to do now is take it. How hard could that be?
Oh dear. Now we just have to remove it from that construct. I'll, leave that to you.
Oh, Jesus.
Get back!
See, he's freezing just fine. It's all good. Oh, god damn. See? frozen. Easy. And look at these boss. I just want everyone to kind of like take a second and look at the design of the boss itself, the boss abilities and the boss fight, and compare it to Diablo 4 boss fights. Just for 1 second. And this is not even, this is like some random campaign boss in Act 3, not even like an endgame boss. The difference in quality of design and just the ideas, it's crazy. I don't understand what the fuck is Blizzard thinking. How does $1 billion company how are they unable to hire someone with great ideas? And grinding gear games is able to do that. And by the way, not like even close. Look at this boss battle. Like, look at it. You actually have to pay attention. You have to learn the mechanics. You probably will die like 10 times before you can get that boss right. It's crazy. I mean, I don't have words. Like, now that we've played Diablo 4 for over a month, and just by looking at a simple gameplay of Path of Exile 2 from Act 3, the difference is night and day. This actually feels like a next generation ARPG game with new ideas, with excellent visual effects, interesting gameplay, insanely well done boss fight, and Diablo 4 team can't fix fucking stash tabs and the way resistances work in the game. Like, what are we even talking about?
Your next question is likely to be, when is the beta? Well, we're in our last year of development, finishing acts, adding skills, and balancing everything. The closed beta will start on June 7th, 2024.
Oh my
Path of Exile 2 has
god.
been a long time coming, and we're incredibly excited to be near the finish line. But we're not quite there yet. We are determined not to rush this and make sure that we get it right. Thanks for watching.
See, thank you. See, this is what Blizzard is lacking. Like, ability to understand and to be transparent. That, like, being able to say, okay, we feel like we're not ready yet, we need another year to develop this fucking game. Because look at this, it looks pretty sick already, but we want to polish it even further. So give us another year. I mean, it sucks that the only beta is coming out a year from now, but holy shit, but it looks like it's going to be worth the wait. Holy shit. And Diablo 4 came out a year early with all these fucking problems that they trying to mitigate right now. Live, while the game's already kind of released. Why couldn't they just say, no, we're gonna release it next year and we're gonna just polish everything out? This is the difference. This is the difference in management. This is a difference in approach and the philosophy and the way the company interacts with its fan base. This is the difference. This is why Path of Exile has such a hardcore, die-hard fan base. This is why I personally love PoE, even though recently they've had a lot of fucking a lot of problems, a lot of dropped opportunities, a lot of fucking dropped balls for that matter. Starting with Calandra last year. Crucible was also horrible. But we still love the game because the game is so interesting. It has so much to do. There's so much meat on those fucking bones. Perfect skeleton, perfect base for the ARPG game, and there's just so much content. And Chris Wilson has such a clear-cut vision for what he wants with the game. And I think the PoE 2 is reflecting that and just takes it up a notch and brings it to a new level, or will bring it to a new level. That matter. I'm super excited, man. Holy shit.